we could do with a little bit more supply coming back on, because we've all got some large order banks, and customers have been waiting now for their cars for some time. So supply, costs, consumer confidence, and delivering on some of our other strategic priorities between now and the end of the year. But I think am I too worried about now and the end of the year? No, I think things will be okay for this year. I think the bit that we are really focused on is what are these next 3 or 4 years look like, and there's some big picture changes coming.
Welcome to the latest AM News Show. I'm AM's Managing Editor, Tom Sharp. And today I'm joined by Lookers CEO Mark Raban and the Managing Director of Motorvise, Fraser Brown. We'll be talking through some topical issues from the sector and, crucially, how both businesses are dealing with the various changes that have been thrown at the sector in 2023. So let's crack on. Gentlemen, great to see you both.
Morning.
Great to have you in the studio.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Two very familiar faces. Our Business Leader of the Year, 2022.
Thank you.
Soon to be usurped, I'm afraid, Mark.
You can't hold it forever.
And Fraser, you've been contributing to AM's website quite a lot recently with some guest opinion piece, which have been highly valued. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Today, you're our first overseas guest, I think, on the AM News Show. So I understand you've flown over from Belfast this morning, is that right?
Yeah, it's really easy hop from Belfast International into Luton, and an hour's drive in a hire car. So it's been quite an early start, but incredibly accessible, all parts of the UK from Belfast.
And here was me thinking I'd invited a fellow Yorkshireman on. It turns out you've emigrated.
Well, Yorkshire is my home. I spend most of my time in Yorkshire, in the Yorkshire Dales. Never happier than being out with my grandson and my 2 dogs in the wilds. That's me at my absolute best.
In Game of Thrones country. Sounds fantastic. Mark, I gather we've sort of interrupted a bit of a mission for you this morning. It sounds exciting. I gather you're picking up a new car. Whether you wanted to share this with everyone, I don't know, but I'm going to.
Well, I will be picking up my new car this week.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm incredibly lucky. I mean, we sort of change cars almost as frequently as we do screen wash. But no, it's fantastic. So I won't tell you which one.
Oh, that's fair enough.
But
okay.
it is an electric vehicle.
I'm excited for you. It sounds fantastic.
It does have a 300-mile range on it, which is going to be just phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm jealous. We'll leave it at that.
Well, I'll take you for a spin.
That'd be lovely. That'd be lovely at some point. So, I mean, I spoke to Duncan recently, actually, about the financial results at Lookers for the last 12 months. There's a lot to unpick in there. I mean, great set of results, but also a real sense of momentum now. We did a feature with Lookers, with yourself, some time back, and talked largely about the turnaround of the business, but it does feel like that momentum's really grown and you're in a different position now, looking forwards. Is that the sense?
Yeah, I mean, what a phenomenal journey we've been on, Tom. I mean, I've been with the group now for approaching 5 years, and in those 4 years, I mean, there's been two really tough. Those first 2 years when we were dealing with a lot of issues from the past, was very tough, and overlay COVID, which was awful for everyone. So 2 really tough years, and then 2 post-COVID, really, really good years, two record results. And, I think the team is really, and all my colleagues are really bound together by our past experiences. And we're really looking to the future with a lot of confidence. And what a lot of change we are going to see, over the next 3, 4, 5 years.
I mean, we'll certainly get into that because there's a few things, few initiatives, few developments that
going on, isn't there?
I want to touch on it, and we'll try and get through quite a bit of that. But I mean, I know we spoke about this in the feature, but looking back, I guess it must still feel like COVID, and it's been said before, I know, but it was a real opportunity to reset Lookers, and I appreciate you arrived at the very start of the pandemic. We've emerged with businesses across the sector, really, that seem to look after their people better. They've become leaner and more efficient as well. But, to what extent do you think that horrible sort of shock that we had in 2020 allowed a complete rethink? Do you think you'd have done that quite so quickly and effectively had there not been COVID.
No, I think that's right, Tom. You know, COVID changed everything for everyone very, very quickly, and you know, I think our industry actually, you know, automotive retailing in general, responded very, very well to all of that and moved forward very, very quickly. And I think, you know, it's easy to forget a couple of years on. You know, back in March 2020, we were 3/4 of the way through the month, March being obviously a key moment for us. Loads of cars not delivered, and we just had to put them away, shut the doors, and that was it. You know, everyone had to completely reinvent their business and, you know, everything. You know, from online, you know, through to multi-channel, through later on to, you know, unaccompanied test drives, things that we never thought we would see. Everyone did, and I think it was a real catalyst to, you know, to drive the industry forward at pace, which I think probably was needed. And I think also for us, you know, we also had our sort of legacy issues to deal with and regulatory problems and so on and so forth. And I think for us that was the absolute opportunity for a sort of cultural reset of our business, and what binds us together now as a company.
Is that something you've observed, Fraser? I mean, coming in here, you know, we talked outside. We know that you've got hands-on or, you know, an interest in so many different businesses, advising and helping with recruitment and things. You know, how much do you think that whole mindset change of COVID has now manifested itself? I know there's, you know, recruitment has become the big issue, I guess, at the moment, isn't it?
Well, the biggest, I think, catalyst is some businesses took the opportunity to change during COVID, and Lookers is one that I've personally witnessed a massive culture change within that business.
You've got to say that.
Genuinely, a huge difference in the showrooms, the feel of the staff, the way the staff speak about customers. In so many ways, when I go into Lookers businesses, Charleshurst, I see huge positive change, and I've probably seen more change in Lookers than I have in most other businesses. And considering the size of that organisation, that's quite a remarkable feat. But there are other organisations that we deal with that didn't take the opportunity and have continued to progress in the way that they were prior to COVID. And that seems like a missed opportunity. Some of the businesses that we work with, smaller dealer groups, maybe 15, 20 sites, they really made some incredible changes. So one of the businesses that I'm particularly close to is Richmond Motor Group. They've grown their business massively. They've made huge changes in terms of the way that they manage their paperwork, largely a paperless business, and you know, huge investment in systems to automate things, make sure they know live time every minute of every day, you know, what's going on in terms of order take inquiries, eliminating inquiry leakage by automating the ingestion of leads, you know, lots and lots of really positive steps forwards in many organisations. And what we're starting to see now is a split in the pack. So I think as business gets more difficult, which it's going to do over the next 12 months, used car supply is still very restricted. We haven't seen a glut of new cars coming through just yet, although we're all kind of sitting back because we know that the manufacturers can't resist a bit of oversupply of the market. It's going to happen in time. And I think you will start to see a big split in the pack. And one of the things I spend a lot of time doing is mergers and acquisitions work. But quite a lot of smaller businesses and groups come into the market at the moment. We work with them for a period of up to 12 months before we bring them to the market. I can see that there's going to be a lot of mergers and acquisition activity happening, in the next 9 to 12 months. It's interesting, and it's. I think we've been overdue this as an industry. You know, we were talking about electric vehicles and driverless cars and all those things 8 to 10 years ago, and really it's actually only started to manifest itself with those manufacturers that took the opportunity of having closed production lines to accelerate the movement towards electric vehicles. I think it was well overdue, and it's great to see those businesses that took that opportunity.
It does feel like from an M&A point of view, sort of late 22 and the start of this year's really got off to a quicker start than a lot of people anticipated. I mean, do you think 2023 is the year that we really start to see that consolidation accelerate now, particularly with, I guess, the agency shift and the remodelling of various networks is driving that, isn't it?
It is. I mean, over the last 20 years, which is my experience in the motor industry, manufacturers come along and individual manufacturers will issue termination notices and reissue the dealer agreements and things. I don't think I've ever seen so many manufacturers coming to the party looking to restructure their network at the same time. So part of what we're doing in the background at the moment is I talk regularly with various franchising managers within the manufacturers, talk regularly with the owners of dealer groups, those larger groups that may be looking to acquire, and the smaller businesses that may be looking to exit. And it's kind of knitting all of that together. But yes, because of the, some manufacturers are requesting huge investments right now, and others are looking to downsize their showrooms. It's quite remarkable how we've got contrast going on, and how all of that washes out in the next 12 months, I think, is almost certainly going to accelerate the M&A activity. Yeah,
I look towards Mark because, having spoken to Duncan in the awards, not yet, in the results conversation that we had recently, we did finish up with a bit of talk about mergers and acquisitions. The feature that we did with AM when we had a bit of an in-depth dealer profile, you talked about sticking with your knitting, Mark, and that certainly doesn't look like the case at Lookers anymore. And there was a suggestion from Duncan that you are now in a position to perhaps start expanding and growing from an acquisitions point of view.
I think that's right. And by the way, Fraser, I think you're entirely right with your analysis. I think there's about 3,500 UK franchise dealer points in the UK now, and probably the top 6 groups hold about 25%. So there's 75% of UK dealer points that sit with independents, larger groups, regional groups, so on and so forth. And I think for the reasons that Fraser's outlined, I think we will start to see some of that moving. In terms of Lookers, I think you're absolutely right. We've had a couple of years of sticking to our knitting, creating the right infrastructure, improving our core business, creating a platform for which we can safely expand from. And I think the time is right now for us to do that.
So, what might we see before the end of the year? What would you like to end the year with added to your back pocket?
Yeah. I don't think timing is the key issue, because I think there is a valuation point here as well. That if you look at the values at the moment, we've had a couple of good years as a sector. So some of the values are inflated. I think we've got, as a public company, we've got our own value to look at as well and see how that compares to possible acquisition targets. But so I wouldn't want to put a time on it, because I think we just become hostage to fortune. We'll do deals when they're the right deals, right brands, right locations, and right price. And when those stars align, then you'll see us doing stuff.
We're all aware that agencies sort of starting to creep in. Fair enough, a lot of the deadlines have been set back a bit recently, given retailers a bit more breathing space, perhaps. How much of a bearing does that also have on, the acquisition negotiations? Because, it's been mentioned that the uncertainty that surrounds agency to a degree, or has done, makes it a bit less certain to project what the profitability of a business will be.
Yeah, I think that's right. We started the conversation this morning talking about change, okay, and an agency and changing relationships with our own partners is going to be a feature of the landscape now for some considerable time, and not everyone likes change. Not everyone, as Fraser said, feels comfortable with embracing it, and that's sort of understandable to a certain extent. So I think for those people that don't really want to go on this next step, this next phase of the journey, that they'll be thinking to themselves, well, actually, probably now might be a good time for me to hand on the baton. And in those businesses where there's not succession, I think that desire is even greater, because it's finding something secure for the business.
Mm. And we started this little M&A conversation with you, Fraser. I guess there is so much complication now with auditing a business for an acquisition, isn't there? There's energy considerations, and there's the agency, and the CI, not to mention the CI and things that have always been there traditionally. how much more intense and involved are those negotiations now than they might have been sort of 5 years ago?
Well, I think for those manufacturers that are moving to the agency model, I don't believe as many will move that direction as initially indicated. I think we'll see a rapid backing off of the agency model as we see volumes increase, and hopefully volumes will increase faster than the demand increases. And invariably, when you see an issue where the manufacturers can't get inventory off their books, then they need an exit strategy for that. And normally that would be fleet, Motability, or dealer self-registrations. So it's going to be very interesting to see how supply and demand align. It's going to be very interesting to see how the manufacturers alter their view of the agency model. But in terms of the impact on mergers and acquisitions, most of our activity at the moment is in manufacturer or brands that are not going down that route. Virtually every brand is either issuing termination letters and reappointing dealer networks, or going down the agency route. So there are a lot of extra complications, and that's why when we're doing work with a business that's ready to be sold, we have to have real active involvement from the franchising managers within the brands, because a business isn't worth half as much if it's not got the brand above the door. So a good transaction for us works well when the buyer's happy, the seller's happy, and the manufacturer's happy. And that's what we try to do. We're just a catalyst to bring all of those things together. And yes, you are absolutely right. At the moment, there are more complications than there usually will be, but also more opportunities.
I'm interested to know what the exit strategy might be when if manufacturers completely backpedal from agency. That'd be an interesting conversation.
Time will tell.
We will see. But I mean, talking about having the name over the door, we've spoken recently with Lookers about the idea or the concept of your new multi-brand used car division, Car Hub. Is that right?
That's right.
Spelt together? I need to know this for my copy, I guess.
No, two individual words.
Two words.
Yeah.
That's good. That's innovative. So give us the concept of this, because we've obviously seen Pendragon and Inchcape and other large groups facilitating this on a larger scale. I guess as a slight reaction to the margins that we've seen in the used cars and the lack of throughput, the thing that I spotted in your details were that there's a bit of an EV education piece as well, I think, in the Car Hub operation. So what are you planning at this stage?
Well, we're really excited about this, Tom. I mean, what we're not trying to do is just do a standalone traditional used car centre in the traditional sense. I mean, the used car market is a massive market. And it's a major opportunity. So what we want to do is something a bit different. So it will be, obviously, there'll be physical cars, multi-franchise used cars on site. There'll be some spokes coming off of that hub. Much smaller sites, maybe kiosks, online using omni-channel and some technology that we've got now. So there'll be a really advanced sort of used car offering, which will have all our stock available on it. Okay, because we're typically stocking between 8,500 and 10,000 units. So we've got a lot of stock to offer, and we can offer it to everyone. So it'll be a good omni-channel used car offering. We'll have on-site multi-franchise servicing. That's really important. I think as internal combustion engines run out over a period of time, there is a big opportunity in those older cars, and we'd definitely like to get into that on a sort of multi-franchise basis. You've mentioned EV education. There'll definitely be some sort of EV pod and EV experiential element. There'll also be charging. I mean, charging infrastructure is very important. So we'll be putting fast chargers into all our sites in order to provide services to our customers, and obviously have a commercial benefit from that as well. And there'll be some form of coffee, experiential element, lunch. So it's something very different here. So it's about relaxing, charging, used cars, and servicing. As an experience for the customer.
Might charging be turned into a commercial opportunity? Is that something?
Absolutely. I think that's what it will be. I mean, clearly, the public charging infrastructure network isn't where it needs to be. I think we all understand that. I personally think there's a big place for private investment in that, and I think we do see selected opportunities for that.
No, I think you're probably the first group that's actually made noises about actually making that step and commercialising EV charging. I might be wrong, but there's been a lot of talk about the potential of it. I guess scale and parking and things like that are often cited as a bit of a sticking point. Where are these sites going to be sited? Where's the property conversation?
I mean, the first thing to say is, look, these are not going to be game changing, to the lookers P&L, these individual sort of charging opportunities. But you were talking about Belfast earlier, so we've obviously got Charleshurst in Belfast. Big operation. I think probably the largest centre in Europe. Charging infrastructure in Northern Ireland is quite a way behind.
It's terrible, non-existent
from a Tesla driver.
Yeah. So there is a big so we've got a plan to put an EV centre on our Charleshurst site. So that's we're looking at that at the moment. So that will be a definite one where we see that there's a big charging opportunity. For a market that's very underdeveloped in terms of its infrastructure.
So when I spoke to James Brearley many moons ago when he was CEO of Inchcape, he was at the start point of launching their used car division and immediately sort of set that target of 25 sites, I think it was at the time. Is that again something that you're doing, putting a number on it, or
we're not sort of fixed on in terms of numbers. I mean, we've got to get our first one rolled out this year, which we'll do. We'll see how that goes, and then we'll make the decision from there. But I do see opportunities for at least half a dozen throughout the UK. But the important point is these will be hubs, but they will be supported. By our core business and by individual sites and much smaller operations more locally within reach. So it is about used cars is about omni-channel. It's not necessarily about how many sites you've got. It's about how you can effectively bring your inventory to market and showcase to customers.
And I guess in that same model, you'd already launched the delivery. Well, you've been doing it for some time now, but you've got the vans to do home delivery and collection. How successful has that proved? Because obviously, the big noise in the last 3 years has been about serving people at the homes with car purchases, whether they want that or not. You tell me what the Lookers customers think about it.
I think what we try and do, Tom, is we just try and give the customers what they want. Okay, so some want it. Some love a truck coming down their road with the Lookers with their brand new car, and you open it out and it comes out in full view of the of the street and the neighbours, which is phenomenal if that's what you want. Not everyone wants that. Some people prefer to come into the dealership, have a more traditional handover. A coffee and have a more traditional experience. So, I think our whole ethos is, nothing's right, nothing's wrong. It's what do our customers want, and what they want, we will give them.
You're definitely not sticking with your knitting now, eh, Mark? Well, sounds very experimental at this stage.
We've got our sort of core infrastructure right now. We have our platform. It's a scalable platform, and I think that we have to now, after a couple of years of some closures, some site closures. We've lost some colleagues, sadly, as well through this period of COVID. So we've consolidated our business. We've got an absolutely fantastic train set. I think probably the best train set in the UK, and now we want to obviously to grow that.
Excellent. Fraser, from your point of view, seeing groups of all different scales and retailers in the individual sites, sort of fathoming which way to go through a sector where, the used car sales have gone through the roof in terms of the potential. People are looking for that omni-channel service. There's leasing, there's agency, there's, subscription. Is that different to leasing? Who knows? you tell me sort of where are people looking at the moment for the opportunity, and what are people looking for advice on more often than not in navigating the current market?
I think there's a range of areas, and I think the key thing that the successful businesses are really focusing on is their customers. It's about the customer experience. Now, we can look at some headline businesses like Kazoo, who came in with an awful lot of noise, but very little knowledge.
We should have a bell, shouldn't we, when they're mentioned?
Yeah, a lot of noise, not much experience in the motor industry, and a belief that they could do it differently. And ultimately, the very old-fashioned statement of clicks and mortar is absolutely right these days. And I think about where I live. I live in the rural Yorkshire Dales a lot of the time, and within 20 minutes, I have 3 Lookers branches. So whilst you may not need a fleet of 100 wagons dropping cars off outside people's doors all over the UK, what I do want if I buy a car from somebody is to be able to get to them in a sensible distance. I don't want to be driving 2 hours to the other end of the country to get my car looked at when I've purchased it. So I think the businesses that have the infrastructure, that have the ability to provide a really great online experience, and the ability to look after their customers once they've actually purchased a vehicle, it is important. And combine that with, my business changed a lot during the lockdown period. We became much more of a tech business. And a lot of car dealerships did the same, and dealer groups, they used that opportunity to become more tech orientated with a true customer focus. Tech is only any good if it delivers the customer experience. And if you've got an outstanding customer experience that is fully integrated from web to having the mortar in place, i.e. the local businesses, and let's say you've got 6 large used car supermarkets across the UK, but then you've got around every used car supermarket, you've got another 30 points more local to the customer where they can go back and get the car looked after, where they can get a great experience. They might even be able to take handover at that location. And I have to say, I love the idea of the charging thing, because, one of the things I do with the electric car is, travelling from Yorkshire down to Cornwall to see my brother. And, family is important to us all, and even in an electric car, you have to get to them.
Even in an electric car, family is important to us all.
So going down from Yorkshire, I have to stop off at Woodall services on the M1, just south of the M18, and I charge there for 15-20 minutes, which will give me 150 miles. I'll then charge down at Michaelwood services on the M5, which will top me up again. So when there isn't huge demand, i.e. not in the week before Christmas when everybody's travelling, I can get away with the electric infrastructure because I drive a Tesla, and that gives you extra options. But I do think I like the idea, because when I go into charge, I'll nip into Starbucks and grab a coffee, and by the time I get back to the car, I've got the charge that I need. So I really like this idea of, coffee shop and a customer experience point, and the ability to charge at the same time. So interesting.
Absolutely. And, I don't know about you, Fraser, but as someone who's looking, people come to you for advice. Bizarrely, people do the same with me on occasion. I've never sold a car in my life other than but the one thing that I am getting emails about at the moment, and I do wish people had engaged more with AM than they already do, but the one thing I'm consistently getting emails about at the moment is, have you got an email contact or any contact with X, Y, and Z new car manufacturer? Because we're exploring new opportunities. Is that something that's really on people's radar now? Seeing the potential of the brands coming into the UK and wanting to get a slice of that.
It's really interesting. We've got some wonderful brands. Relationships that brands have with their dealer group partners, for me, I think is really important. And we have some brands in the UK that do that very well. And I can say, I was working in a dealer group many years ago, and I was invited down to Birmingham to the Kia conference. And this bloke stood up on the stage called Paul Philpott and promised all sorts. And we all thought, yeah, we've been here, we've heard this all before from you guys. And you know what? That guy delivered. And what Kia is today and how they treat their partners, that is an example to all manufacturers. And look at their market share growth. Look at the way their individual dealer partners' businesses are worth fortunes at the moment. There's huge interest in Kia businesses, and I really like to see manufacturers that genuinely treat their partners well. And Kia have been of their word more than most. Have done, in my opinion, a very good job of building a genuine retail market place. They treat their customers well. But I do see other companies that are very exciting, like MG. So MG are obviously new into the UK. We have an awful lot of interest from dealers wanting to engage with MG, who are less established than Kia. But again, they've got their own growing pains that they're going through at the moment. But MG are a brand that are supplying the vehicles, that are working with their dealers, don't overcomplicate things, and MG, I think, are a superb partner for the future. It's always very difficult to tell with new entrants to the market how they're going to be, because I judge manufacturers on their track record, and until they have a track record, it's very difficult. But ultimately, some of the people that they have within MG have proved trustworthy in their previous roles, and that for me means that I think there will be a great partner to work with in the medium and long term. And you can really look at all the manufacturers, and there are some right now that are in absolute chaos and really do need to hang their heads in shame. And I'm not going to name names, but being a dealer partner of them at the moment, one in particular I'm thinking of, must be like managing a car crash.
What is the...
Don't hold back.
Mark's been very careful not to be seen in the background nodding at any of this. There's his stony face down there.
Yeah,
poker face.
Absolutely.
Well done, Mark.
My business isn't reliant on any kind of great partnership. It's the beauty of being utterly independent. I don't have any corporate politics, and I can speak my mind, and I believe in being utterly authentic.
I guess it's the smaller retailers that are far more vulnerable and have far more riding on a lot of these things, really, because it can be the case that they go out of business or they have to sell to a larger player. So it feels, when these negotiations are undergoing, it feels like life or death to them, doesn't it? So how difficult is that?
One of the things I always advise the smaller groups that we work with, is to make sure they don't have all their eggs in one basket. Have a diverse portfolio. So if, for example, your business is 3 sites, all the same brand, then it becomes a matter of urgency to have a good used car operation, because used cars are utterly independent of any third party, and you live or die by your own success, really. But to diversify your portfolio as an independent dealer group is, I think, incredibly important. But then on the flip side, you see other groups that have got coming on for 40 sites, all of the same brand, who are absolutely amazingly good at what they do, and win lots of awards for it, and run a very, very respectful organisation that does very well out of one brand. But when it comes to selling and changes in contracts with manufacturers, if you are a single site, single brand operation, or a single brand operation with multiple sites, you are unquestionably exposed, and I have great empathy for people who've put their houses on the line, have started a business from scratch, invested everything that they've got, and then a third party pulls the rug on them. It's a very difficult place, and I will go to the ends of the earth to help people like that and help them find an exit that works for them and the manufacturer. At the end of the day, we're all people, and we have families, and if your livelihood is put at risk and potentially your home and everything, huge empathy for people and respect for people that have started their own business and invested everything they've got into a franchise motor dealership.
Few interesting conversations to be had in recent months along those lines, actually. Retailers very, seemingly rightfully aggrieved and upset at the treatment, and it's very sad to hear and come across that. I guess from your point of view, Mark, with a big group, it's great to see you getting in on a ground level with new emerging brands. By the same token, you're a real attractive prospect for brands coming into the UK and looking to get established, and you're helping those people get that foothold. I can't wait to see you in your ex-bus company car, by the way. But there's BYD and there are others. How exciting are those new opportunities?
Yeah, look, we're in an incredibly privileged position. I mean, we represent over 35 brands. I completely agree with Fraser. They've all got their individual nuances and their individual ways of working, and that's fascinating to see and be part of. Does present some challenge if you're trying to run a group with a sort of standard.
They might be a bit less bullish with you than with others. I don't know, Mark.
In terms of, because they like to do things their own way, quite rightly so, because it's their business, their product. But that does for a group cause certain difficulties in terms of standardising things. I mean, goodness me, I think there's something like 25 new Chinese brands planning to come to the UK. So pure electric brands, and I've seen some absolutely phenomenal and very exciting product on its way. So we think it's important to have a balanced portfolio. Completely agree, and we do have a very balanced portfolio. I think probably we have a new car market coverage of over 90%, which is a good place to be. But we definitely want to take a position with the new brands. We're very, very privileged to be able to work with Polestar to bring them into the UK and launch what is amazing set of products, and what a fantastic job they've done. And it's been great to be part of that journey. But you can see just from that Polestar example just how quickly momentum can gather. So you're absolutely right. We're talking to a number. We can't talk to all 25, so we have to be selective about it. But we're very, very excited about that new product that's coming through.
I was gonna say, in the past, history tells us that you can't always predict who's going to gain traction in the UK. There are brands that are still a lot more successful in other parts of the world than they are in the UK, and times have changed, though, haven't they? Car buyers are a lot more brand agnostic now, and there does seem to be a lot more of a willingness to buy something as a product and see how you go, rather than sticking with the same brand and being a loyal customer. So I guess it feels like the right time to introduce these new brands to the network.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the other thing that's amplifying it is that we are seeing a number of entry level models, or whatever you call them, sort of disappearing. So the Fiestas, amongst others, is disappearing, and I think that is going to leave a bit of a vacuum. There seems to be a trend towards everything's luxury. And in the interest of balance, we think it's very important to have a balanced portfolio, and so there is ground being offered up, really, at those entry level price points for new entrants to come into. And you talked about the success of MG, and I completely agree in terms of what they've been able to do. I think the interesting thing will be, over a period of time, where do some of these new entrants go? I think anyone that thinks they're going to be confined to the sort of lower end volume end of the market, I think is very much mistaken. I think the vehicles I'm seeing are going to be phenomenal, and we'll see new entrants trying to put models in, from the far end luxury right the way down to give themselves a balanced portfolio of products, because that is what they will want to do. So it's going to be really exciting to see just how this all plays out.
I think,
but we're laying the foundations now, and we're forming some fantastic new relationships, and we're learning a lot. We deal with overseas manufacturers, and we're dealing with people from and products from different jurisdictions, and we're learning a lot about how to do business in that way as well. So very, very excited.
Yeah, and by the same token, while people are looking at these new brands, people are looking at also at a time where EVs are coming in looking expensive, holding on to their cars. So the after-sales opportunity, and in particular, I know something Duncan was very excited about is the cosmetic repair side of Lookers, which I guess not only allows people to keep their cars looking fresh, potentially hang on to them for longer, but means that the cars that are in your grasp from a repurchasing point of view, a resale point of view, are better kept. When they come back to you, they've been better looked after.
Yeah.
I understand you've actually shared yourself that you're one of the biggest customers of the alloy wheel refurb department.
Yes, I must apologise for that. I'm not good. I'm not a great driver, I have to say. I'm particularly not good in tight spaces like the car park outside, for example, which I didn't bother checking.
I'm glad you're picking up your car today, and it's not news that you've damaged the new one.
But I think, Tom, what we're trying to do there is electrification does present some challenges in the aftermarket. Okay, it's clear that electric cars don't have low on lubricants. Okay, so clearly, and the service schedules are elongated, etc. So it's clear there is a challenge there, and I think what we're trying to do, there's also an opportunity, but what we're trying to do is exploit where we think those opportunities are. And cosmetic repairs to us is just a no-brainer. It's a highly fragmented market. It's got good margin dynamics to it. It's a great customer proposition, especially for people like me. And of course, we're refurbishing 100,000 of our own cars every year anyway. So why would we want to pay someone else to do that when we can do it ourselves? So we're learning a lot about that particular market. We're very excited about that opportunity. But also, I think we shouldn't get hung up about this after-sales threat of electrification, because I think there's loads of opportunities that we've yet to see. Okay, there's less of an opportunity than oil and brakes, but there's more of an opportunity in tyres. Okay, these electric vehicles are heavy, so they are heavy on tyres. There's obviously the battery, which is a big opportunity at various stages of its life. Smart repairs and cosmetic repairs, which is an opportunity. So it's not all doom and gloom when it comes to after sales. In fact, far from it. So we think there's some big opportunities, but we've got to lay the foundations now for that.
Battery swap stations?
Well, I think the battery is just going to be fascinating in terms of what happens with it. I mean, who knows? My sense is that we could actually get to a situation where the car is a separate transaction from the battery. Okay, because people do worry about the battery because they think it's like their mobile phone. So it degrades over time, and who knows? We've just not got enough experience of a 10-year battery yet. So to me, there is an opportunity there that you take the car, you take the battery. I mean, the battery doesn't have to go for life with the car, does it? So, and I also think, with electrification, there are other opportunities which customers are telling us they're keen to explore when they buy their EV. So remember, this is a whole different education for the customer. So we think there's great opportunities to look at the home eco management system based around the car. So if we can provide as an industry renewable ways of charging their vehicle at the point of sale, or at least give options, that's got to be some real value added to those customers, and that's the time to do it.
Good stuff.
Yes, it's really interesting that I've just gone on to Octopus Intelligent, which is a very interesting way of charging an electric vehicle. So that they will charge my vehicle when they want, as long as they get the vehicle to fully charged by 8 a.m. or whatever time I set for it. And looking at how Octopus are integrating with the vehicle market, it's going to become quite interesting, because the grid has capacity, excess capacity, huge amounts of it overnight, but during the day it's at capacity and struggles to keep up. And this interesting dynamic and the relationship between charging and the fact that we've got many cars, 100 kilowatts of energy sat there that can be drawn out back into the grid during the day and filled up overnight, where we're wasting energy turning streetlights on so that we can keep a base load going for the power stations. That is going to be a very interesting dynamic within the motor industry over the coming years. Certainly, the relationship between the grid and electric vehicles is going to become so intertwined. It's going to be very interesting to see how that happens. And throw that in with what Mark was saying earlier about the an opportunity for a lower cost entry vehicle and what Tesla's got coming around the corner. It's going to be very, very interesting, because I think we're about to see, we've seen some hints at realignment of pricing on used electric, and as a result of Tesla's movement. I think Tesla in two ways here. One, if they do bring in a significantly cheaper electric vehicle with a good range, they're going to really do very, very well. I think as a tech company, they show some naivety in terms of the way they repriced and the way they made their proposition more affordable, because they didn't need to slash the price of the vehicle. They could have subsidised PCP residual values, which would have had a much less negative effect on the used value, and would have reduced the transaction price, because most people buy a car on a monthly payment. They could have brought the monthly payment down by over £100, which makes their vehicles far more affordable. But instead, they slashed the price, and their actual monthly payment has gone up, so they're less affordable. So I think that's a little bit of naivety, and they really should. Kazoo chose not to embrace the knowledge of the people that have been in the motor industry a long time and look at the direction that they're going in. And then you look at Tesla. They are no doubt a really innovative and wonderful company to have achieved what they've achieved. But, perhaps they do need a little bit more knowledge and experience in terms of how they bring their product to market in a way that actually delivers what they were trying to achieve, which was more affordable electric car, when the monthly payments ended up going up. It was just a very strange way of going about it. Now, either they've got a really clever long-term plan that's beyond my brains, which is highly possible, or they just didn't execute their price readjustment in the UK as well as could have been done. For me, I would have definitely put a subsidised rate in, a finance deposit allowance, or something to do with the residual value boost, so that they didn't see the collapse in the used values, but could have brought the transaction value down on the new car. So it's really peculiar, but I think we've got a lot of bumps in the road to go on electric vehicles, but I have absolutely no doubt they are the way forward.
I'll forgive Tesla. They are trying to get to Mars at the same time, so it's a lot on the plate. We've talked a lot about the opportunity in the sector, I guess. There's lots going forward and lots of opportunity for lookers, clearly. Just looking between now and the end of the year, what do you see as we start to wrap up the podcast? So what are the main opportunities and I guess the main challenges between now and the end of the year for lookers?
Sure. I think there's a couple of things, Tom. I think the sort of economic turbulence and outlook that we've had really over the last 6 months has not been terribly helpful. Things seem a little bit more stable now in terms of interest rate expectations and inflation. But in order for customers to make a big purchase commitment, they need to have a little bit of certainty around. So I think getting some economic stability back, which is starting to come back, I think will be very helpful, to underpin consumer confidence. Because let's be honest, with inflation in double digits as it has been, is makes life uncertain for absolutely all of us, and that's not helpful. So I think for lookers, managing our costs in an inflationary environment, I think is going to be key. Helping consumer confidence is going to be really important, particularly with those interest rates. And I also think bringing a bit more supply back on. We've obviously been through a very difficult period of supply. I think you're right. We need to get that balance of demand and supply much more in equilibrium, which is will ensure the long-term health of our industry. But we could do with a little bit more supply coming back on, because we've all got some large order banks, and customers have been waiting now for their cars for some time. So supply, costs, consumer confidence, and delivering on some of our other strategic priorities between now and the end of the year. But I think am I too worried about now and the end of the year? No, I think things will be okay for this year. I think the bit that we are really focused on is what are these next 3 or 4 years look like, and there's some big picture changes coming.
It sounds like it. Real change in tone since the last time we spoke, Mark. Massive. No longer sticking with your knitting.
Yeah.
Just less of a strong headline, but anyway. And Fraser, I guess as a business, you were telling us before, you're working globally, and you've expanded. Things are going pretty well. So how do you see the rest of this year panning out?
I see the biggest challenge for motor retailers, pretty much in every market we work in, is people. We see, echoing what Mark said in terms of the inflationary environment, retaining people. But I was very lucky when I was 19. I was dyslexic at school, I really struggled. And at 19, I found myself selling cars in a Hyundai dealership on the back of an old Rover dealership on the south bank of the River Tees. And I found something that I could do. And I really, the motor industry has given me an income and given me a wonderful lifestyle and given me and my family everything we could have ever wanted. A lot of hard work and a lot of hours. And what I find huge pleasure in within my business is bringing people into the motor industry through our recruitment days, and then training them and watching them grow. And just, we're 8 years into Motorvise. And I now see people running multiple sites that came in through our recruitment days, people that are now general managers. And there is nothing I get more pleasure from than seeing people grow and seeing people come on and seeing people I've brought into the motor industry now, almost getting to divisional director level. And, maybe it shows that I'm old. But ultimately, I still think bringing people into our industry, whether that's technicians, whether that's salespeople, growing them, giving them the skills and knowledge to profitably deliver exceptional customer experiences, and grow to become managers and work all the way through a structured program to become the leaders of the future. That, I think, is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have at the moment in the industry, and something that I personally get huge satisfaction from helping to solve.
Great stuff. Sounds like we're well on to building quite a strong future. It's a really positive podcast, I think, chaps.
Well, listen, I completely agree about people. I mean, I've got 6,500 wonderful colleagues, who go above and beyond every day, for our business, and that's phenomenal. And I think it's going to be at the heart. Good people will be at the heart of every successful business. Great stuff.
Thanks ever so much for your time, guys. Good note to end on. Thank you. Best luck for the rest of the year.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.